this afternoon's webinar. Apologies for a little bit delayed getting started due to some technical problems, which I think have hopefully been resolved now. Just allowing some time for participants to join. Hopefully you can see my screen and everything okay. My name is Claire Canning. I'm one of the programme managers for the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership, and I'll be running today's webinar, which will give a good overview of the manufacturing facility support programme that we've recently launched at OWGP. So today's session, in terms of housekeeping, today's session will be recorded, and you will be issued with a copy of the recording and a copy of the slides probably tomorrow at the earliest. And we also encourage you to put questions into the chat or into the Q&A box, and we should have some time at the end of today's webinar to go through any Q&A. So I've got roughly 30 slides, I would say, which I'm hoping to get through in around 30 to 40 minutes. We've got an hour scheduled. I don't think it'll take that long, so hopefully plenty of time for questions. So without further ado, happy to get started. This is the agenda for this afternoon. So I am going to give an overview of the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership and the various different programmes that we offer in terms of funding and business transformation. I'll then go into a little bit more detail around the manufacturing facility support programme, what the program, how to apply, and all that good stuff. I've got some do's and don'ts as well, some sort of helpful hints and tips for submitting an application, and then I'll move to the Q&A portion. Okay, so for anybody that's not familiar with the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership, this is a programme that was established in 2019 as part of the offshore wind sector. It was set up as a mechanism to help UK supply chain companies in offshore wind grow, become more competitive, increase chances of winning work within the sector. We're recognised now as UK's flagship supply chain growth funding and business support organisation dedicated to offshore wind. The programme itself is funded by the Offshore Wind Industry Council. So essentially it's a members forum of developers and turbine OEMs that are building projects, offshore wind projects in UK waters. Developers are putting funding into a pot that is then specifically designed to help UK businesses. And the way that we do that is through two key mechanisms. The first one is business transformation, and the other one is funding. So essentially business support and grant funding for companies to help them grow, address barriers to growth or barriers to entry into the offshore wind market. We have a high level budget of £100 million over 10 years to fund these programmes, and as I mentioned, that's private industry funding, but the programme itself is delivered by the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. We have four kind of key objectives or KPIs when it comes to helping companies. The programme itself is looking to accelerate revenue growth, create UK skilled jobs, increase exports, and develop UK IP that through the development of new products and services. So those are the sort of four key metrics, things that we're looking to achieve when we're helping businesses. And on the left-hand side there, I've got some examples of companies, UK companies that have benefited from grant funding through the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership. This is the team. We're quite a small team at the moment. All employees of the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. So our programme director, Anil Sayan, started a couple of years ago. There's myself and Tom Speedy, who managed the grant funding side, Laura Fairley and Matt Brown, who managed the business transformation side, and then we've got project management support from Emma Lewis and Theo van der Kamen. Today we also have a new person starting to support us with comms, and then we've got another project manager starting in a couple of weeks' time to support on the grant funding. So we're a small team, but we are growing, and we are quite a dynamic team. In terms of the impact, the programme so far last year has supported over 280 project activities throughout the UK to help grow offshore wind supply chain. You can see the map on the left-hand side there. We have a full UK remit. In terms of the companies that we're supporting, we ask them to report on that growth and the impact that OWGP supports provides them. And we're tracking over 1,000 increased jobs, over £200 million increased turnover, 170 new products and services for the offshore wind sector, and over 95 million in exports. And that's just in the last 5 years, and that's only for offshore wind. So it's really encouraging to see that companies are benefiting from the support that we offer. And just to give a sort of high-level overview in the different initiatives that we have in OWGP, in terms of business transformation, so that's about providing access to structured business support programs and helping barriers to growth. We have the Wind Expert Support Toolkit, or the WEST programme, which is sort of high entry-level, low-intensity, very needs-focused business support programme that provides 8 to 10 days worth of support from a consultant on our framework. And we have, I would say, 10 to 12 delivery partners or consultants that we work with that have very domain-specific knowledge on offshore wind. And we have a menu of things of specific needs that companies might have that they can select from, and then we match those companies up with a delivery partner who can help best help address those needs. So it's a very popular programme. It's open on a rolling basis, with the next wave closing at the end of this month. So we run it in a wave so that we can close it, manage the applications, and then open it again. So always looking for applications for WEST. The Fit for Offshore Renewables programme is pretty popular as well. So this has been something that's been adapted from the nuclear industry and Fit for Nuclear programme. It's a supply chain readiness programme designed to help companies win work within the sector. So almost like a qualification programme for companies looking to grow their businesses in offshore wind. And it combines business excellence and sector specific support as well, delivered by independent experts and through offshore renewable energy catapult expertise as well. Slightly more intense programme that could be anything from 12 to 18 months. And we're looking to launch the next national Fit for programme within the next couple of months, I believe, so do look out for that. It also operates on a regional basis as well, so you may have seen regional programmes of Fit for in your area, but OWGP funds the national programme. Sharing Growth is our most intense business transformation programme. It is adapted from the Sharing Growth programme that's been operating successfully in the aero sector for the last decade. And it's very much about sort of long-term business transformation, embedding experts or sharing growth specialists within your organisation to help drive organisational improvement. So it's very much focused on culture, leadership, strategy, and helping to enhance companies' future direction for growth opportunities. That's something, again, that's open on a rolling basis. For any companies that are interested are welcome to submit an expression of interest. And if anybody's interested in the business support programmes, I'm happy to direct you to my colleagues that manage the business transformation side of things. On to the grant funding programmes. So we now have 3 grant funding programmes on our portfolio. We've been running 2 for the last 3 or 4 years. First one being the Innovation Funding Programme. So this is funding for quite technology-focused projects that will deliver new innovations into the offshore wind market. They tend to be quite targeted or themed towards specific industry innovation priorities or innovation challenges, and are directed to us from industry, so developers that actually have challenges, and they provide us with the themes for these competitions. So grants of up to 200k are available, And you can see in the bullet points there some of the themed competitions that we've had previously. So around site development and consenting, decarbonisation, improving reliability, and most recently we closed an innovation grant call focused on future cables and electrical systems and next generation installation operations and maintenance. To complement that, we've been running the development grant funding programme since 2020. This is essentially offering scale-up funding for transformative projects that will help companies increase capability, capacity, and ultimately improve competitiveness in offshore wind. So this competition tends to be quite broad, open scope, not tied to a particular technology area or innovation priority. It can be about commercialising new product, service, technology. It might be about investing in facilities or equipment, or implementing new processes, or anything else that's going to help companies deliver a step change in growth in offshore wind. And that's grants of anything from £50,000 up to £500,000. So the focus of today's webinar is the Manufacturing Facility Support Programme, which we have just launched in the last week or so. This is funding that will deliver a bankable business case and help unlock investment in new manufacturing facilities. So through this programme, again, we're offering grants of up to £500,000, and I'm going to talk around this in a little more detail now. So this is our pilot programme. Essentially, we're offering funding for early stage development or pre-investment activities that will ultimately unlock capital investment in UK manufacturing. So I've just heard that the microphone is not working well. I might disconnect. Sorry, just bear with me a second. I'm going to disconnect and see if speak directly into. I'm sorry, bear with me. Better. Okay, getting a thumbs up. Apologies for that if the sound was bad. I thought I could sit with me. I'm just getting rid of that. So yes, so the MFSP or the Manufacturing Facility Support Programme will provide funding for sort of pre-investment activities that would ultimately unlock capital investment in UK manufacturing facilities. So we have a competition pot of £2 million. As I mentioned, grants of up to £500,000 are available. So we're probably looking to fund between 4 to 6 projects or 4 to 6 facilities. The proposals should be focused on either building new manufacturing facilities that will help support offshore wind, or significant expansion of existing mines. Through this programme as well, we're trying to make sure that our funding competitions are well aligned with the Industrial Growth Plan priorities, and I'll come on to that in a minute. The programme is really aligned to industry strategy and the kind of make or buy prioritisation assessment that was done earlier in the year. Essentially, what we're looking to do is sort of help companies fund the necessary steps needed to help companies build that investment case and secure the capital investment they need to build a facility. Ultimately, the criteria that we're looking to fulfil is around capital investment. So projects should be unlocking a minimum of £5 million capex within 2 years of the project closing with OWGP. So that would give enough time to build that investment case, take to investor and secure that capital investment. We're also, I mentioned our OWGPs criteria in the first slide. We're looking for projects that are going to ultimately unlock UK jobs. We've got criteria here of 20 new jobs minimum within 5 years, and also increasing annual revenue. So unlocking at least £5 million within 5 years. On the right-hand side there, I've got some example activities that would be eligible for funding through this programme. So things like engineering design, feed studies, factory optimisation, site selection, market intelligence, geotech work. These are some suggestions that have come to us through applications that we've received previously, and through a consultation exercise that we did earlier, I think this summer, June, July. We launched a consultation with industry to better understand what types of activities we should be funding. So we're trying to keep it quite broad, but essentially all the kind of early development pre-investment activities. Ultimately, programmes should be unlocking investment in UK manufacturing facilities. We're looking to make sure we're increasing UK manufacturing capacity and capability to support the offshore wind sector. And as I mentioned, this is either in the form of new facilities or facility expansion. We want to fund projects that will help increase UK content, UK jobs, turnover, and exports in the offshore wind sector. And as I mentioned, our focus through this programme is the sort of early stage activities. I've mentioned about the funding pot and the grants that are available. Project duration would typically be between 9 to 18 months is what we're targeting here. So in terms of project scope, we're looking for proposals that will demonstrate clear alignment and potential with the priority areas that are identified within the industrial growth plan. And I've linked this. You'll see if you've been through the scope document, there's some links and references to the growth plan. In 2024, earlier this year, the Offshore Wind Industry Council, who are the funders of the OWGP, they published the Industrial Growth Plan, which targets £25 billion of GBA through a focus on technology areas that are vital to domestic supply, or where we have the capabilities to build UK competitive advantage and leadership within offshore wind. I referred to make or buy earlier, so through this industrial strategy, a make or buy prioritisation assessment was conducted to look where the strengths and opportunities were for UK manufacturing. The outcomes of this analysis highlighted the key focus areas for the UK to make, nurture to make, and protect. And through this programme, we're considering all the categories and subcategories identified in the make, nurture to make, protect groups. And I've basically summarised them there on the right-hand side. We have 5 focus areas through IGP: advanced turbine technology, industrialised foundation and substructures, future electrical systems cables, next generation installation O&M, and smart environmental services. So that's sort of sums up the whole supply chain. And within these areas, we have some key priorities that have been identified through that analysis of where UK should be focusing its manufacturing. So you can see like quite high level supply chain areas there. You know, we've got blades, towers, drivetrains, foundations, moorings, anchorings. All of these things are in scope as part of this competition. What I will say is that we'll also be considering subsystems, subcomponentry, subassembly as well, which is more representative of UK supply chain. So we're not necessarily expecting floods of applications from blade manufacturers or tower manufacturers, recognising the supply chain, developing subcomponents, subsystems would still be eligible there. And then on the next slide, this is taken directly from the Industrial Growth Plan. It provides a bit more detail on the make or buy assessment that was done and provides the definition. So in terms of make, or what that make category looks like, these are materials or areas where UK has high ability to win, long-term market opportunity, and we should be really focusing our energy on looking to make some of these things. Nurture to make is where there's high market opportunity, but currently low ability to create. So it's an area that needs to be nurtured if the UK is going to develop capability in these areas. Also identifies we're not going to be able to, or where we shouldn't be focusing our manufacturing capability that's going to be bought in from overseas. and areas where we should be protecting. So there may be a low market opportunity, but high ability to win, areas where UK should be protecting these areas of supply chain. So the categories are fairly broad, and you know, as this is a pilot programme, we haven't run a competition like this before. We do want to keep it fairly broad to see you know, the types of applications we receive, and to be as inclusive as possible. And as I mentioned, I've included a link to the industrial growth plan here. So do have a look. It's a good read, and it kind of will set the context for why we're running this competition. In terms of project activity, you know, I mentioned that this for kind of early stage development activities for manufacturing facilities. I've included a list here. This list is not exhaustive, so if there are some early stage activities that you think that would warrant funding and you're looking to include these in your proposal, certainly open to seeing them. As I mentioned, these are activities that have been proposed to us previously and came through the consultation exercises, priority areas where companies would welcome funding. So ultimately, project activity must lead to unlocking capital investment in the facility. Must be additional to business as usual activity. So this needs to be a standalone sort of discrete project that wouldn't be happening anyway. And must deliver long-term impact in manufacturing for offshore wind. So what do we mean by that? Well, it's going to lead to the creation of jobs, export opportunities, development of IP, that could be through manufacturing processes, methodologies, you know, helping to create that growth. And you know, if you're unsure if your project is in scope, then you know, do reach out directly. As I mentioned, this isn't an exact science. We have done this before. We're fairly open in terms of companies exploring, you know, what's in scope. So do get in touch with myself directly or the team at the info at mailbox. This is a fairly busy slide, so apologies, but this competition, like any of the other OWGP funding competitions, is eligible for UK registered businesses only, companies that have a UK presence. As I mentioned, you know, this needs to be a discrete standalone project. It's not necessarily business as usual activity. So projects should have a distinct scope, address an offshore knowledge. The facility should be able to demonstrate impact in terms of long-term manufacturing in the UK. We want to see would this project, would this facility happen without external funding support? What's the additionality of OWGP funding? Project scope must lead to investment in a new manufacturing facility or an existing facility that services offshore wind. And there should be some clear alignment with at least one of the 5 priority focus areas identified in the IGP, which I've just gone through. Specifically, should be looking at these areas: the make, nurture to make, or protect. Applicants that may be resubmitting a proposal from a previous OWGP competition will only accept one resubmission, so this would be your first and only resubmission. And we would not be accepting applications from companies that have already received 3 or more OWGP grants. Through the proposals as well, I will say we want to see companies demonstrate a credible route to unlocking capital investment. So that needs to be core to the proposal, that you know, where this unlock, this capital investment is going to come from, what the plan, the business plan is to achieving that. I've mentioned about the sort of the KPIs. One thing to touch on as well is we will provide a maximum of 50% contribution to the project costs. So put an example there. So £1 million project, might be made up of a £500,000 OWGP manufacturing grant, 250,000 cash investment from the company, and 250 in-kind contribution. So match contribution can be sort of cash or in kind, but I guess it sort of depends on the nature of the proposal. If it's ultimately all capex, then the company contribution should be capex as well. We also encourage and welcome applications from companies that would consider the repayment of funds in future years after the facility is secured FID. This isn't essential. This isn't mandated as part of this competition. Really, we're just looking to be responsible funders, and if there's an opportunity for us to have, if a company secures multi-million-pound investment for their facility and they're able to pay us back, we can reinvest that money into future funding competitions or business support services. So it just gets recycled and put back out into future support opportunities. In terms of project teams, we would have obviously the lead organisation or the lead beneficiary of the funding, or the owner of the facility, I should say. We do encourage the inclusion of other organisations, as part of a wider project team, wherever this is appropriate. So this might be other UK supply chain companies, it might be potential clients or end users in offshore wind that will benefit from whatever this facility is manufacturing. It could be academic organisation, or it could be research technology organisations such as Catapult that are able to offer access to expertise or facilities or testing assets that are not found in other organisations. So if there's a real genuine reason to be bringing in an RTO or another partner or some external expertise, then we would encourage that. Just like any of our other funding programmes, the OWGP will contract with and allocate grant payments directly to the lead organisation only. We would ask the lead organisation to manage any other sort of subcontracting agreements. Any sort of project partners would be classed as subcontract to the project. Proposals should be facility focused, not technology or innovation focused. And what we mean by that is they need to be separate or different types of proposals we would receive through the innovation grant programme or the development grant programme. This particular programme is just focusing on facilities and not necessarily about new products, services or technologies. And then the last point there just refers to our sort of terms and conditions, which you can find on our website. If applicant does not make a substantial effort to exploit the award in line with the funding agreement, the project management plan, OWGP reserves the right to terminate the agreement and recover funding already paid to the applicant. So these are sort of just standard terms and conditions. But if there's any questions or concerns about that, happy to take any questions away. And all as I mentioned, the funding T's and C's can be found on the website. In terms of the application, it resembles what we would do for a typical development grant application. So there's a two-stage process. This will enable the OWGP programme team to sort of manage volume of applications, determine eligibility early in the process. So we're able to let companies know as soon as possible, are they eligible, are they going to go through to the next stage? And so we can identify the most appropriate assessors. So through this programme, we'll be appointing new assessors onto the programme that have specific expertise, knowledge and experience in manufacturing. Only successful stage 1 applicants will be invited to the next stage in the application process. And the deadline for stage 1 applications or expressions of interest is Friday the 20th of September. So it's quite an aggressive timeline for that first stage, because we're looking to run this quite quickly so we can make award decisions before Christmas and get projects started early next year. So a process that would normally take us probably 7 to 8 months, we're trying to do that in 4 months. So everything's sort of accelerated in terms of the timeline. So apologies if you think there's not a lot of time. I would agree with you. We will review all stage 1 applications and notify applicants by the 4th of October. So yes, it's quick to get your stage 1 applications in, but the turnaround time from our side is also very quick. So you'll be notified of the decision by the 4th of October, and we'll provide as much feedback as we can wherever possible to all applicants. At that time, successful stage 1 applicants will receive a template for stage 2, and this will need to be completed and submitted to us by mid-November, so Friday the 15th of November. So there's a good sort of 6 weeks to complete the stage 2 business plan. In terms of how to apply, this was for anyone that's familiar with OWGP funded programmes, the process is exactly the same. It's a Microsoft form. Before you fill out the form, highly recommend you download the scope and guides document and review that quite thoroughly. It's quite a long document, 20 odd pages, but it sets the scene in the scope and the eligibility quite clearly. It also has all the application questions as well. So if you wanted, you could copy those questions onto a Word document, fill those out, and then paste them into the Microsoft form once you're ready to apply. We recommend doing that because you can't save and return to the application within the form, which has been an issue for a while. I will say we are trying to resolve that issue for the next round of funding, so that there will be a mechanism there that you can go on, create a profile, start your application, and you can save it and go back to it. So hopefully early next year for our next funding round, we'll have that in place. But until now, Microsoft Forms. You'll be able to save a PDF copy of your responses after your submission. And once you send it to us, you'll get an email confirmation and a PDF again of your submission. Again, this is a really detailed slide, a bit wordy, apologies for that, but it kind of sets out the criteria, the assessment criteria. Some areas very similar to what you've seen before in previous funding. However, the focus here is really about the facility, about the link to manufacturing, and the alignment with the industrial growth plan focus areas. So there's 9 sections, and yeah, sections 2 to 8 are the ones that are assessed. So the first section is really just about getting an understanding of the background to your business, and why you're well suited to manufacture for the offshore wind sector. So what's the sort of the relevance to this particular programme and the suitability of the applicant. It's quite self-explanatory. The next section is all about understanding the sort of the market opportunity or challenge that the facility is addressing. So we want applicants to be able to demonstrate that they understand the challenge they're trying to solve with the use of OWGP funding. So this will really help to justify or demonstrate the motivation for this project or opportunity that's identified here. Ideally, we'd be able to see how that market is developing, how the market's growing, how the facility is a sustainable solution to underpinning that future growth. So we want to see sort of where you can quantify the market size and the market opportunity. The next section is about the alignment, as I mentioned, with the IGP. Covered this in detail now. All of our funding programmes, not just the MFSP, but anything we do going forward, will be aligned to the industrial strategy. So if you're able to sort of show that close link and show how this funding will generate a facility or unlock investment in a facility that really kind of aligns with those priorities, particularly the make priorities, then those will score higher. The next section is just a bit about what's the project going to do. So tell us about the project, tell us about what the key deliverables are, what are the milestones, what are the kind of activities that this project is going to lead to, how will you manage this project to make sure that it will maximise chances of success, and how is the facility addressing that challenge. So you know, the section that you talk about, that market opportunity challenge, here we want to understand how this facility is going to address that challenge, and a bit more about what the project will do. The next section is a bit about want to understand how this project will then go on to unlock capital investment. So that's quite a key criteria for this particular programme. We want to understand the suitability for capital investment here. So and yeah, want the applicant to be able to justify how this project will lead to further investment. So do include here, you know, the steps that have been taken or will be taken to secure that investment, and you know, other enabling organisations that you might be engaging with, you know, such as potential customers. So yeah, so fairly open question here. As I mentioned, we've not ran a competition like this before that focuses on capital investment. So this is your opportunity here to show how this will generate that next step. The next section is just a finance summary. So we'll want to see what the project costs are and what the different budget lines are. So also want to see a justification for how this project is a cost-effective way of solving the challenge. And here, not only are we trying to see the value for money, but the additionality of OWGP funding as well. So is OWGP funding really needed? Would the project not take place or be less effective without the funding? That's key. And what are the expected outputs in terms of business growth? So we want to see the impact on the KPIs I mentioned, jobs, turnover, IP and exports, and any other additional benefits or impacts that will be generated through the programme. The scoring weighting you can see on the side there, and if you've participated in the OWG programme previously, you'll recognise a lot of these sections. So sections 2 and 3, 5, 7 and 8 are very similar to our other funding programmes. Sections 4 and 6, I think, are sort of the key differentiators here. What's the facility doing? How does it address a challenge? And how will you unlock that capital investment? In terms of the timescales, I mentioned it's fairly aggressive. The call opened at the end of last month. The online briefing event was supposed to be last week. I should have mentioned that at the start of the webinar. It was supposed to be last week. Apologies for anybody that that tried to tune in and was unable to. We had to reschedule that to today. So thank you so much for joining. The stage 1 application deadline is Friday the 20th, and then it's again fairly turnaround after that. We are expecting to make our award notifications before everybody finishes up for Christmas, with a view to starting the projects early next year. So ideally the start of February next year. This is the timeline. You know, I mentioned that typically for a 2-stage application process, it could take us anything, you know, 7, 8, 9 months to get from call launch to awarding projects or getting projects kicked off. We're almost halving that to try and get it done in accelerated timeline. In terms of the submission, we would ask that you register on the website if you haven't already. The draft application questions can be found in the scope and guidance document. I do recommend that you draft responses to them before you fill out the application form. Paste the responses into the form, all the links are there, and submit, and you'll receive that email acknowledgement to confirm that we've received the application. So I would say if you don't receive an email, do reach out to me and we can double check that. In terms of the assessment, stage 1 applications will be reviewed internally. Really, it's to check the eligibility and alignment of the proposals. So, like, is the applicant a UK registered business? Does it have a UK presence? Is this for an eligible manufacturing facility? Is the funding request within the stated thresholds? Does all the project costs add up? Is the match contribution appropriate for this call? So just some sort of basic high-level criteria to make sure that the applications are eligible. Stage 2 business plans are more detailed in terms of the questions, in terms of the content and the responses. These are reviewed by independent assessors. They're checked again internally by the team, and they're also reviewed by the OWGP board to help with the final award decisions. So there's like a further sort of 3-stage application process or assessment process for stage 2. In terms of assessors, they'll be asked to score applications using very detailed evaluation criteria that we've generated, aligned with the high-level sections that I went through and the assessment weightings that I went through that you can find in the scope and guidance document. And applicants will be notified of the decision via email and receive feedback. Very quickly, sort of do's and don'ts. Do check you're eligible before submitting an application, and just check with me or any of the team if you're unsure. Check your project costs and grant requests are within the range for this competition. If it's too small an amount or too large an amount, the proposal will be rejected. Please do check and double check project finances. Every time we run a competition, there's at least 1 or 2 applications where project finances, they don't add up, and it's hard for us to determine where the mistakes are. So yeah, do just check all the budget lines are correct. Do highlight if you're open to repayment options following commercial success or once facility reaches FE. Again, this is not essential. KPI alignment, I've mentioned, it is quite key. So if your project is not likely to unlock further capital investment, if it's not going to unlock new jobs or enable revenue growth after OWGP support, it's not going to be selected. So it might be that this particular competition is not the right it's not the right support mechanism for you. But we can potentially signpost you to other funding that may be available. I mentioned about demonstrating a clear market understanding. This is always really helpful. Do quantify wherever possible. It helps us better understand that that there's a clear market for this and an opportunity to exploit for company growth. And I mentioned as well, consider UK manufacturing of some of the subsystems and sub-assemblies of the priority areas. In terms of things maybe not to do, we've mentioned about eligibility. We've mentioned already that this shouldn't be business as usual activity. In terms of rounded up costs, it's quite important that the costs that are submitted as part of the application are accurate, and that you're able to demonstrate evidence that how you've arrived at these costs. So try not to round up or down just at the near zero. We would like to see, exactly how much things are likely to cost, and quotes and things from subcontractors. Also do provide clear indication of how you've arrived at some of these costs and how they demonstrate value for money. Again, quite often receive cost breakdowns with no explanation. So it's very hard for us to assess value for money. In terms of the stage one, again, this is just a Microsoft form. You will not be asked or required to submit additional material at this stage. If you're selected for stage two, there will be an opportunity to send supporting documents, letters of support, and other supporting material with your stage two business case. Any overseas partners or subcontractors, do notify us in advance if you're intending on working with any overseas contractors, so that we can understand the justification. Obviously, the purpose of OWGP funding is for to support UK business. So if there's a particular reason not using a UK supplier, let us know. And then in terms of KPIs, I would say try not to inflate any forecast KPIs or impact figures. We would require justification for all forecasts and how they align with the market opportunity that's been explained in section 2. Great to see ambitious KPIs or ambitious forecasts, but they need to be sensible and they need to have some justification. Okay, so I'm thankful that I've moved on to the Q&A portion, so that people have hopefully been putting questions in the chat. Before I quickly move to chat, I have some example questions here that have already come through to me that I thought might be helpful to share with the rest of the group. So obviously one of the KPIs that we track is around IP. In the context of manufacturing facility, how can we demonstrate growth in IP, you know, if we're not focusing on technology. Typically we would measure this through the generation of new products and services. In this case, you know, we would like to look at things like new manufacturing methods and process, advanced manufacturing potentially. So we're particularly interested in proposals that can anchor manufacturing in the UK around IP, which can then be continuously developed. So that's something to think about if you're looking at a facility and looking at new manufacturing or advanced manufacturing processes. If a fabricator was looking to manufacture sub-assemblies for floating offshore wind substructures, i.e. tubular bracings or transition pieces, would they meet scope of industrial foundations and substructures? In short, the answer is yes. So I was trying to kind of reinforce earlier in the webinar that if you're unsure that something sits under one of those sort of focus areas, priority areas, do let me know. Things like sub-assembly, subsystems, I think they're all important and are more representative of UK capabilities. So I would say yes, these would meet both. What about transition piece manufacturing? Again, yes, it maybe is not specifically outlined in the IGP, but I think that there's justification to be made there about the market opportunity for UK manufacturing of that component. What about pin pile manufacturer for next generation fixed bottom jackets? Again, this is a really good question. Jacket foundations, I don't believe, come under any of the priority categories for the industrial growth plan. However, my answer to that, if an applicant is able to make a sort of compelling case and demonstrate there is a competitive position for a UK company to manufacture something like pin piles, then I would encourage a submission. It's ideally there would be that clear link with IGP, but yeah, if there's a compelling case to be made, then absolutely we'll look to consider it. So those were the sort of example questions. I've talked for way longer than I expected to, so happy to go ahead and ask any questions or answer any questions in the chat. So I'm just trying to move my screen so I can see them. Okay. So I've got a question here from James. Does this include things like subsea asset protection devices, scour protection, cable protection? I would say probably need to understand a little bit more about the context, but if it's about developing a facility that's going to manufacture anchor manufacturing of these products in the UK, then yes, these things would be in scope, particularly cable protection, which I think does come under one of the make or nurture to make priority areas. Next question, if you're unsuccessful at stage 1, are you allowed to resubmit one additional time? Is that correct? If you're unsuccessful in stage 1 for the MFSP, there will not be another opportunity to resubmit into this round because we've got a stage 1, we'll shortlist companies and take those to stage 2, we'll shortlist companies and then we'll make award decisions from there. If this programme is successful, and I'm hoping that it will be, we will launch another round. So this is just the pilot competition. So next year, we'll look to launch more funding. Probably in January or February, we'll have development grant competition, which I mentioned is the sort of the kind of open scope competition. So if you submit into this competition and you're not successful, you will get feedback from that, and you can reuse that application and bid in one more time. So that might be to development grants, or it might be to the next round of the manufacturing facility support programme. Hopefully that answers the question. You won't be able to bid back into this round, but yes, a future round. Can you provide a download of the stage 1 form questions so that different team members can work on these offline before populating the form? Yes, I think that's a good idea. Happy to take the questions from the scope and guidance PDF, and I can put them into a Word document or a PowerPoint, whatever's easiest, and add that onto the website. Happy to do that. Given the aggressive timeline, we will rely on provisional information for stage 1. Is there scope to refine this information in stage 2? And will, for example, cost changes be acceptable? Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You'll be looking for constructive feedback on stage 1 quickly, so that you can make changes as appropriate in stage 2. So I would say yes, there is option to refine this based on the feedback that you'll get from stage 1, and there will be scope for things like changes in cost. I think that's fine. We sometimes do see that in competitions. There just needs to be a rationale or justification for why has it changed, what's changed in between stage 1 and stage 2. And how does this affect the grant request to OWGP? Can applications be collaborative? And if so, is a collaboration agreement needed between the partners? And will OWGP contract with a single lead or the whole consortium? So I would say applications can be collaborative. We would encourage that. We don't have the capacity to have multiple contracts with each partner within a consortium. So OWGP will contract just with a lead organisation, who the kind of main beneficiary of the funding would be, or who the facility owner would be, essentially. And then they would need to manage those subcontracts with other partners. So yes, applications can be collaborative, but we would only contract with a single applicant. Sorry, I'm just moving down. Sorry, in the scope document at the top of the page, it lists the following to provide a forecast for 1, 3, 5, 10 years in the questions. 1, 3 years and 2030. Do we need to provide forecasts Okay, thank you for pointing that out. I think there might be a typo in the application form. I think the question in the scope and the guidance document is correct. 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, and 10 years. So we want to see the long-term impact. So I will have a look at the, obviously if you've already completed the form, the online application form, that's fine. I will review it. I wasn't aware that there was a discrepancy there. Do go with the questions that are in the scope and guidance form, and I'll make the changes to the application form. However, as I said, if you've already submitted, don't worry about it. Sorry, let's try to make this question down. Following comment referencing stage 1 assessment having high level assessment to ensure eligibility. Can some information change between stage 1 and stage 2? Yeah, so I think I sort of covered that briefly. I think it's to be expected that as more information comes to light, or as you get feedback on your stage 1 proposal, there may be scope to change some of the information between stage 1 and stage 2 around things like cost, or if you're bringing in specific partners. I think that's fine. I think as long as there's not like drastic changes in scope, and the project proposal still resembles stage 1 broadly, that's fine. I wouldn't worry too much about changing bits between stage 1 and stage 2. So I'm just realizing the time. I think we have like 30 seconds left. Can the funds be used to set up an offshore wind focused subsidiary company, or a UK company, and the subsidiary would remain in the UK? Funding, I don't know if I've understood that question correctly, but funding couldn't be used to set up a new company. It needs to be sort of facility focused, but I'm happy if you want to reach out to me directly and I can understand a little bit more about the context behind that question. Sorry, I can't see if there's a final question here. So very quickly, is the 50% contribution funding requirement relative to the total project cost, or the pre-investment phase cost the funding relates to? That's a really good question. It's just the pre-investment phase cost that this funding relates to. So it's not for the overall facility cost, it's just for the OWGP component, just for the proposal that you'll be submitting to OWGP. 50% of those costs. I think I got through all the questions there. Hopefully I did. I'm sorry I've run out of time and we had a little bit of technical issue there. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. If you do have any specific questions that haven't been covered here, do reach out. I will create a FAQ and I'll add it to the website so that all these questions and answers are captured. We will send a copy of the recording as well directly to you, and a copy of the slides. Yeah, please do get in touch if there's any further questions. I really appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you for joining in, and have a great afternoon. So thank you so much.